You're listening to Psych to Parent, where we turn brain science into tiny wins at home. I'm Dr. Amy, your not-so-typical school psychologist, mom of two, and endurance athlete. I love a good data set and a diagnostic manual, but I also forget permission slips, overthink IEP emails, and occasionally replay the moment I snapped at my kids in the car. In other words, I'm in the messy middle with you, not above it. This show is for parents of big feeling, big thinking kids who are tired of vague advice and Pinterest perfect behavior charts. Each episode, I'll pull back the curtain on what I see in real evaluations, school meetings, my private practice, and my own kitchen, and translate the research into simple scripts, tiny routines, and nervous system friendly tweaks you can actually use. Think of it as a nervous system rehab meets mindset coaching meets a smart, slightly spicy, non-judgy friend in your earbuds. We'll take one real life challenge at a time and shrink it down into 1 or 2 tiny wins you can start this week. No perfection, no 47-step sticker systems, just small, repeatable shifts that add up over time. Quick legal-ish note in plain English. This podcast is for education and support. It's not therapy, it does not create a clinical relationship, and it's not a substitute for personalized medical or mental health advice. If you're worried about your child's safety or mental health, or your own, please reach out to a trusted professional. Okay, deep breath, drop your shoulders. You're not behind and you're not alone. Let's get psyched to parent. It's 4:49 a.m. My house is in the in-between quiet phase. There's lunch boxes that are half packed on the counter, yesterday's school form still sitting there where I meant to sign it, a stray lacrosse ball under the sofa that no one can find when we actually need a lacrosse ball. I'm standing in the kitchen in an old race t-shirt, waiting for my coffee to brew, having a full negotiation with myself. One part of my brain is saying, you're tired. You were up late writing last night. You have a full day of clients. No one will know if you skip this run. The other part is quieter but firm. You signed up to climb another mountain. You know what happens when you keep a promise to yourself. So I lace up anyway and step out into the Florida dark. Sometimes it's a run, sometimes it's a power walk, sometimes it's more like I'm staring up at the sky and just shuffling my feet. Somewhere around minute 12, my mind does what it always does. It drifts to the people I care about, to my kids who are still asleep down the hall, to the parents I'll sit with later today carrying their own quiet, heavy things, to you listening right now, maybe in your car or on a walk, who feels like you've been at mile 19 of parenting for a while. And it hits me again. This feeling right here, tired, not glamorous, but showing up anyway, this is what endurance looks like. It's unseen, unglamorous, and still brave. This is exactly what parenting has felt like in every hard season of my life. Grieving and caregiving through terminal illness, being pregnant while my body held grief and new life at the same time, being the school psychologist who seems like she has it all together at work, and then losing it over socks on the floor that my kids have been asked to pick up 10 million times. Signing up to climb a mountain like 29029 Whistler, an event where you literally hike the vertical equivalent of Everest over and over again. Because for me, some deep part of me needed to turn all of that invisible endurance into something I could see and touch. Parenting my kids and training for these events are not two separate stories. They're the same story, just told 2 different ways. Welcome back to Psych to Parent, a brain-based parenting podcast for parents of strong-willed, big-feeling, big-hearted kiddos who want less chaos, more connection, and tiny wins that they can actually carry in real life. Whether you're parenting a kindergartner who melts down over socks, or a middle schooler whose eye roll could power a small city, I see you, and I have a seat at the table for you. I'm Dr. Amy, licensed school psychologist, a mom of 2 very human kids, an endurance athlete who keeps signing up to climb mountains, and I'm a recovering overfunctioner who is learning slowly. And I don't have to hold up every mountain by myself. On paper, I read data and write psychoeducational reports. Off paper, I stand on lacrosse sidelines, pack snacks in the car that may or may not be crushed goldfish, wake up early to train for things like 29029, Whistler, and Mont Tremblant. And I work really hard not to bring my fix everything energy into every tiny moment with my kids or my husband. Today, I want to pull back the curtain a bit. Now, this episode is a little bit different than what I typically do on this podcast. And I want to share some information about me, the person. These are sometimes the behind the scenes that people don't get to see. It's a chance to kind of share what Dr. Amy looks like outside of office hours or a therapy session. Quick note before I do, though. I am going to share the nervous system's parts of my story, not private details, no name, no medical specifics, just the pieces that might help you feel less alone and more steady in your own parenting journey. I'm going to share the personal story behind why I talk about parenting as an endurance sport, how caregiving, grief, and years of being the strong one have shaped my nervous system. A little bit of brain science, but in plain language, about why you feel so tapped out, and how you can borrow some endurance tools even if you never want to run or hike anything ever. By the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll walk away with a kinder story about your reactions, a new lens on your big feeling kids' behavior, and a few tiny sustainable habits, training blocks, then you can start this week. This episode is going to be less research heavy and more, let's sit down with coffee and talk about what this really looks like. Let's jump straight into my messy middle. It's a Tuesday night. I've been in back-to-back sessions all day. I've heard hard stories. I've held parents' tears and kids' worries. I've been in wise, regulated professional mode for about 8, 10, sometimes even 12 hours straight. I walk in the door at my home, and instantly I'm hit with the after-school swirl. There's the backpack explosion in the hallway. One kid is starving and demanding dinner immediately. The other kid may be done with all humans for the day except for mom and just want to curl up and snuggle in my lap. Someone can't find their favorite shirt, and homework is apparently a human rights violation. And then it happens. One of my kids snaps at me about something tiny, like, I don't want that for dinner, or rolls their eyes. And my nervous system doesn't care about the content. It hears the tone. I feel something hot rise up in my chest. Before I can even register it, I snap back. Not my calm podcast voice, the clipped, sharp, I'm done tone that makes the air in the room go heavy. The second it comes out of my mouth, my stomach drops. And this very specific shame script kicks in for me. This is literally your field, Amy. What the heck? You help other people with this. You know the brain science. Why can't you hold it together in your own kitchen? This is my messy middle. Not the highlight reel, not the mountain summit photo with the medal. Just me, a tired mom, reacting in a way that doesn't match the parent I want to be. If you've ever had that moment where you hear yourself and think, who is this version of me? You're very much not alone in this. I promise this wouldn't feel like a journal article, so let me keep this really simple. Your nervous system keeps a running tally of hard things you've lived through and the load you're carrying right now. There's a term for this in the research called allostatic load. It's basically the wear and tear of carrying stress for a long time. Like you've been living with a weighted backpack for years. Over time, things pile up like rocks in that backpack. For me, some of those rocks were finding out I was pregnant and then a month later losing a family member in a tragic, unexpected accident, or sitting in a hospital room as a quiet caregiver, talking to doctors, trying to look like I had it all together, while on the inside I was falling apart, while someone I loved was dying, feeling my baby kick during those appointments, my body literally carrying grief and new life at the same time. Almost 2 decades of being the strong one in schools, the data person, the calm one, the one who remembers every kid's story and needs, building and running a private practice, and then parenting strong-willed, big-feeling, big-hearted kiddos on top of all that. My nervous system learned, you stay on duty, you keep everyone okay, you don't drop balls. For me, I learned that rest was something that I had to earn and didn't deserve like every person I held space for. So later, when my kiddo would scream about the wrong colored t-shirt, my body reacted like the stakes were still life or death. From the outside, it looked like, wow, she is really overreacting. On the inside, it was years of load showing up in the middle of my kitchen or a kid's bedroom. Layer on top of that something else, executive function. The planning, organizing, impulse control part of your brain is like a battery. School drains their battery. For kids, for us as adults, things like work, caregiving, decision fatigue, and invisible labor drains yours. So now you've got 2 people with nearly dead batteries trying to run the hardest part of the day together at 7 o'clock. That's not a moral failing. That is a capacity problem. And here's the hopeful part. Brains change through repetition, not perfection. When I finally looked at my own story and said, wait, nothing is wrong with me as a person, my system is overloaded, I've been climbing, it opened the door to something else for me. Not more shame, but more self-compassion. And here's the thing. Self-compassion isn't fluff. Shame tends to freeze us. Compassion tends to move us forward. For me, the shift looked like replacing "you're the worst mom" with "of course you snapped. Look at what you're carrying. And also you can repair this and do this one tiny thing differently next time." That's the heart of endurance parenting. You cannot hate yourself into being calmer. You can only understand your nervous system, honor the mountains you've already climbed, and start to parent in a way that's more sustainable. All right, let me give you 2 examples of what this looks like in real life, okay? So the first example I want to share is what I like to call the teacher email. Okay, it's 11:38 p.m. I'm in bed, but I'm not sleeping. I'm drafting an email to my kid's teacher. Not a quick one, a well-structured one, bullet points, warm tone, solution-focused. Probably some research went into it too. 3 attachments that I probably didn't need to send, but I wanted to make sure it had evidence. I read it 6 times like it's going to be entered into evidence. And I have this weird out-of-body moment when I see myself. And then the thought drops. Who am I doing this for? Am I doing this so my kid is supported? Or so I don't feel that awful feeling of, what if they think I'm not on top of it? That was one of the first nights I said out loud, okay, hi, I'm Amy, and I'm an over-functioning parent in recovery. Because my nervous system still whispers to me, if you manage it perfectly, everyone will be safe. But the more truthful story is this. What will actually keep us safe is me closing the laptop and going to sleep. If you've ever sent a midnight email you didn't technically need to send, you're in very good company. Okay, so here is something I think is really cool. Let me give you a quick school psych in your pocket moment. Because some of the most exhausting parts of endurance parenting aren't even, it's the school communication and the way it can make your nervous system go straight to, I have to manage this perfectly, or my kids won't be okay. So let me translate a few school phrases into plain English and tell you what to do next. When a teacher says, he seems fine at school, what it often means is, I'm not seeing it disrupt behavior or learning in this setting, so I don't have a clear problem to solve yet. What you can do is you can give them a usable picture of what you're seeing at home, especially the after-school crash, and ask for one small data point. When a teacher says, we don't really see that here, what it can mean is that your child is holding it together all day, and then the wheels come off when they get home. That is not being dramatic. That's restraint collapse. What you can do is you can ask something like, what do you notice right before the end of the day? Are there any transitions, demands, recess conflict, sensory stuff? You're looking for the last hill they're climbing before they walk in your door. When a school says, we need more data, what it often means is we need clearer examples and a pattern before we can change supports. What you can do is, don't write a novel, send 3 bullets. Here's a template you can steal from me and make it sound like you. The subject might be quick homeschool check-in. Hi, Mrs. Smith. We're noticing a pretty consistent after-school crash lately. Number 1, here's what we see at home. Just give 1 or 2 brief examples. Number 2, what we're wondering. Are you noticing anything similar, especially late day or during transitions? And then number 3, what you're asking for. Could you share 1 observation this week? Any patterns with transitions, peers, stuff, demands? And can we regroup next Friday? Thank you. My goal is to stay collaborative and help my child feel supported. And here's the endurance piece. If you're writing that email at 11:38 p.m., your nervous system is driving it. So 1 boundary rep that counts as training is draft it and schedule send it in the morning, because sleep is also an intervention. Okay, let me hop off my school translator soapbox and get back on the mountain. Something that is deeply personal to me is my love of endurance sports. I didn't realize how much I loved endurance sports and what that would mean for me. I signed up for something called 29029. 29029 is an endurance event that is completed in 36 hours. And your goal is to hike the elevation equivalent of Mount Everest in that time. So what they do, 29029 rents out a ski mountain with a gondola, and you literally hike up the mountain, hop in a gondola, come back down, put a brand on a board that keeps tally of how many ascents you've done, and you repeat that process over and over again. In August of 2025, I went to Whistler, where I did my second 29029 event. When I was on the mountain at Whistler, I felt great. I had trained really well for Whistler. I had practiced doing long distance hikes on an incline treadmill. My fueling, nutrition, and hydration plan, I had done simulations to practice hiking a long day and then waking up early the next day to do it again. So I felt really strong. For Whistler, I had to hike 8 ascents to summit Everest. And I felt great for laps 1 through 5. I finished lap 5 around 11 o'clock that night, and I was feeling pretty good. I went back to my hotel room, went to bed, slept for about 4 hours, and woke up to start hiking again the next morning to finish my last 3 laps. And that was my hard lap. It was lap 6, where my legs were tired. My headlamp battery died on me in the midst of hiking in the dark. I also got lost in the trail and ended up adding an extra mile to the hike. And when I finally made it to one of the aid stations after getting lost, I thought, I could just stop right now. No one would blame me. People would understand. Instead of quitting, I made one small deal with myself. Let's walk to the next aid station. Then once I got there, okay, now let's walk to the next tree. So aid station by aid station, I finished the lap. And I eventually finished the whole event. And that is exactly what after school used to feel like at our house. I wanted to tap out. That is exactly what after school used to feel like at our house. I wanted to tap out, not from my kids or my partner, but from the sensation of being needed in 15 different places all at once as soon as I walked in the door, on top of having a very old, very tired nervous system. The endurance skill in both places was the same. What's the next tree? What's the next flag? The next tiny step I can take without abandoning myself. That's where Tiny Wins comes from. They're not pretty Pinterest goals. It's our one next flag. One of the most shockingly powerful changes we made at home was this. When my kids walk in the door after school, I do not pepper them with questions anymore. For the first 10 to 15 minutes, the only thing I say are some version of, I love you, I'm glad you're home, here's your snack, and really that's it. Therapists sometimes call what happens after school restraint collapse. Kids hold it together all day, they follow the rules, navigate friendships, they might be masking anxiety or ADHD or other neurodivergent stuff. And then they get home to you, their safe person, and their nervous system finally says, oh, we are done. It's safe to fall apart now. When I stopped acting like the moment they walked in was performance time, how was your day? Any homework? Did you turn in that form? And turned it into a mini aid station, our meltdown rate dropped dramatically. On paper, it looks like nothing. In real life, it's one of our core endurance parenting habits. So what does this mean for big feeling, strong-willed kids? Let's go back to that after school time. You probably see some version of this for yourself. Your kid walks in, their school self fully on, polite, masked, holding it together. 5-10 minutes later at home, it's, this is the worst day ever. Shoes are flying, tears, maybe yelling, stomping feet. I love a good slam door. Maybe you hear you're the worst parent ever, or I'm the worst. I hate it when kids say that. Our automatic story might be, they are so dramatic. They're doing this to make my life harder. Why can they behave for everyone else but not for me? But through an endurance lens and through what we know about restraint collapse, something else is happening. Their behavior is often their nervous system saying, I used all of my regulation tokens at school today. That last hill, whether it was social drama with friends, maybe a test, sensory overload, that took more out of me than you can see. You are the safest person I have. So this is where it all comes out. And I want to name something important. A lot of the kids who fall apart hard are also the kids who love hard. Deeply empathic, justicey, intensely loyal. The intensity cuts both ways. Now, that doesn't mean we let anything go, but it does mean we shift the question from, how do I stop this behavior right now, to what is the behavior telling me about their load, their skills, and the habits around this part of their day. Big feelings don't mean you have a broken kid. They usually mean you have a sensitive nervous system running a very hard race. Here are some scripts you can play with and make them sound like you. When your child melts down after school, you might say something like, "Hey, buddy, your brain had a really long day today. It looks like you've had a hard race. Let's hit an aid station. Let's have a snack, some water, a few quiet minutes, and then we'll figure out the next step." When you feel yourself about to snap in your head, you could say, "Okay, I'm not at mile 1. I'm at mile 22. Of course, everything feels bigger right now." And out loud, you might say, "I'm feeling really stretched right now. I'm going to take a quick breath and then try that again." When a hard part of the day keeps repeating, you might say something like, "This part of the day is bumpy for both of us. Instead of fighting it every night, let's make a little routine so our brains know what's coming." When you want to be honest about your own growth, you might even say something like this: "I used to yell a lot faster in moments like this. I'm working on pausing it before I talk. I won't get it right every time, but I'm practicing." Let me tell you about a real repair moment from my house. A few weeks ago, I snapped at one of my kids over chores, and I could see it. Their shoulders dropped. I watched their eyes go wide, and then I watched as their face shut down. I walked into my laundry room, which is my very glamorous regulation cave, took 30 seconds, and came back out and said, "Hey, I don't like how I just talked to you now. That wasn't about you. That was my tired brain talking. I'm sorry that I snapped at you. You still need to do what I've asked you to do, but I'm going to try that again with a different tone." They rolled their eyes because they're children, but they stayed with me. At bedtime, they said, "I like that you came back, Mom. Relationship research backs this up. What matters isn't never messing up, it's repair. Every time you circle back and say, 'I'm sorry, let's try this again,' you are not giving yourself a consolation prize. You are literally strengthening the relationship." Now let's shrink all this down into a few tiny wins that you can try. Pick 1 or 2. That's it. Not all of them. Tiny win number 1. Name your mountains. Sometime this week, make a quick list. It can be on paper, on your phone, in your head, of 3 hard things you've lived through in the past years: illness, loss, a move, a diagnosis season, a job upheaval, parenting through a pandemic, caring for aging parents, sleep deprivation. Then say to yourself, "No wonder this feels hard. I've been climbing." That's not self-pity, that's context. Tiny win number 2. Protect one small aid station. Choose one hot zone. It could be mornings, after school, the homework routine, bedtime, and create a 10 to 15 minute buffer inside of it. Maybe it's a snack in silence after school, or maybe it's low lights and music before bedtime, or maybe it's a simple morning playlist while everyone gets dressed. It doesn't need to be anything elaborate, just something repeatable that says to your family's nervous system, "This is where we refuel." Tiny win number 3. One boundary rep for your nervous system. Choose one place this week where you will not overfunction. Maybe you let your child talk to their teacher about a missing assignment instead of emailing for them. Maybe you say no to the extra committee. Maybe you stop editing the same email for the 5th time and just send it. When you do it, notice the discomfort and remind yourself, "I'm allowed to put this one rock down." Tiny win number 4. One nervous system hygiene habit. Pick one small habit that supports your brain and your body. Maybe it's going to bed 20 minutes earlier. Maybe it's a 5-minute walk outside after dinner. This isn't about perfection or wellness points. It's about sending your system the message, "I want us to make it up this mountain." Here's the reflection question for this week. If I treated my parenting life like training for a long, meaningful climb, instead of a race I'm supposed to win every day, what would I do differently this month? Would you rest more? Say no to one thing? Ask for help? Create one small routine instead of trying to overhaul everything at once? You can journal on it, think about it on a run or a walk, talk about it with a partner or a friend, but let that ride shotgun with you for the week. If this episode gave you even a tiny bit of permission to see yourself as an endurance parent instead of a failing sprinter, make sure you're following or subscribe to Psych to Parent so you don't miss the next episode. And share it with a friend who's also quietly caring a lot and might need the reminder that they're not weak, they're just climbing. And if you want more brain-based, real-life tools like this, delivered in a way that feels doable, not overwhelming, come join my email list. It's where I share tiny wins you can actually try in a real week, nervous system-friendly parenting reminders, and school and advocacy translations to help you feel steadier when things get complicated. You can join the link in the show notes or on my site. Oh, I just have a little friend walk in. You were never meant to hold up every mountain by yourself. You're allowed to climb with rest, with support, with snacks in your pack, and with a completely different definition of what it means to be strong. I'm really honored to be one of the people cheering you on as you climb. We're taking tiny wins together.
We'll keep taking tiny wins together. One big feeling, one repaired moment, the ordinary night, where you choose good enough on purpose.
Thank you.
I love you, Mom.
I love you too. Thank you for hanging out with me on Psych to Parent. I'm Dr. Amy, your not-so-typical school psychologist, and I'm genuinely glad you're here doing this work instead of quietly white-knuckling it and blaming yourself. Your tiny win from today's episode is simple. Do not overhaul your entire parenting style. Pick one idea, one sentence, or one tiny shift and try it in a low-stakes moment this week. Then notice what changes, even if it is just by 1%. If you want more support, head over to psychtoparent.com. You'll find show notes, simple scripts, and parent-friendly guides that go with these episodes. While you're there, make sure you join the Tiny Wins mailing list so you get weekly brain-based tips, real-life examples from my work with families, and first dibs on new workshops and resources. It's the easiest way for us to stay connected beyond the podcast. If this podcast was helpful, it really does matter when you tap follow or subscribe. Leave a quick review or text it to a friend who is parenting a big-feeling, big-hearted kid too. This podcast is for education and encouragement. It is not therapy, and it's not a substitute for individualized care. If you're worried about your child or yourself, please reach out to a trusted professional in your area. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are building something new, one tiny win at a time. I'll see you in the next episode, probably with a cold coffee in hand, cheering you on.